Welcome back to the Intentional Wealth channel. You're watching a video in the playlist for the 4% business owner, that business owner who is determined to transform their business into a wealth engine that fuels their lifestyle, their legacy, their retirement, and the impact they want to have on the people in their community. Today we're going to dive into really what is the intentional wealth framework. We talked about it a little bit in the introduction to intentional wealth, but we're going to do 3 videos here. So this will be the first one. There are 3 pillars of intentional wealth, and we've given this a great deal of thought as we looked at what's been working for our clients and how do we make that a consistent experience for them all.
And I think it would be fair to say that hopefully you've seen some of the other videos, and if you haven't, you should, that all of the other topics that we've covered actually fit into this framework. So although chronologically we didn't start with this video, everything else we talk about fits into this framework.
Yeah, and I think you need some of those mindset shifts to be this dispassionate about your business too. Right? When you watch this and we turn your passion, your vision, your strengths, the quality and value you deliver in the world into something that is mathematical and predictable, you have to kind of be ready for that.
Yeah, we often say that there isn't any magic in business, but having a framework, and I'm a big believer in frameworks, having a framework to hang all the new knowledge that you acquire as you become a business owner is a really efficient way to internalize that and actually be able to use it when you need it in the operation of your business.
I love that. We were talking actually yesterday about a client who having the information is important, but then when you're putting it into use, being able to come back to us and say, I know you guys can help with this. There's probably a better way of setting up this contract. What do I need to consider, right? So she's got enough information then to know who on her team to pull in to activate some of these aspects of wealth so that she's not getting herself in trouble.
Right. Yeah. So the third part, or the third recording, is the one where in a really pragmatic way, I think the rubber hits the road. But you need the other 2 pillars in place first.
Absolutely. So what would it be like if you could transform yourself from that self-employed to owner-operator to owner-manager and then owner-leader, right? Those are the steps on the journey, and this is the framework that you build them from, right? There's a great appeal to that. So quickly, there are 3 pillars. Each pillar has 3 aspects. So we've got our 3 threes. Pillar 1 that we're going to talk about today is design. This is how you create the business, why you create the business, really, right? When you create it from your why. What is the lifestyle that business should fuel for you to make it worth your while, right? That's a biggie, and it's one that I sit down in the first meeting, especially if it's a husband and wife team. Are you on the same page? Have you had that conversation? Sometimes you haven't because your business is so new and now it's successful. It's time to step back and say, how successful is it and how do we measure that? So your lifestyle is the place we come from. We don't come from, did you grow 10% year on year as the only measure of success in your business.
Right. And as you probably know by now, I'm always thinking sort of equations and numbers. So we've actually translated that design concept into an equation which says that the wealth that you're going to produce in your business, your wealth engine, is going to be equal to your lifestyle and your legacy. It's that simple. All of your wealth is either going to be used in the lifestyle you want to pursue, and then how you design your legacy, what you want to leave to your community or your children or whatever you want your legacy to be, the sum of the lifestyle and legacy is going to be equal to your wealth engine.
Which is super simple, easy to understand, hard to do.
Yes.
Not easy. Having that lifestyle number, it's not something people look at. They fear that they're going to be forced into budgeting. And so when I tell them, no, I don't want how you're going to budget. I want to know, what is your budget? How are you spending the money? And is that enough to be living the life that you want? Is anything missing? Because whatever's missing, we then roll into that monthly number so that we know your lifestyle number. It's exciting, it's intentional, and it takes a strong mindset around financials, around money, and around having those conversations that you might avoid with your spouse or with even yourself about money. We all come, we call that the little red wagon that we bring from our childhood, with some of those old ideas about money's greedy, sales is sleazy, don't want to get too much money because it'll turn you into a terrible, selfish person.
Spend it because you think it's going to go away.
Yes.
There are a lot of money behaviors that everybody shares, and people often feel ashamed about them. So the first part of the planning, the work that we do with business owners is always focused on lifestyle. And one of the sort of interesting visuals that we have to think about that is the wealth that you produce has to come into your life in two phases: while you're working, and then after you stop working, for whatever reason that is. Maybe because you want to retire at 45, or maybe it's because something happens in your family that forces you to retire. But it comes in those two pieces, and we use the Wile E. Coyote running off a cliff, and maybe I'm dating myself here, but Wile E. Coyote runs off a cliff, and you don't want your lifestyle, which is going to go from whatever age you are now watching this video to, typically we plan to age 95. So in that lifestyle, you don't want any major disconnects in your spending. So a large part of what we do up front with business owners is to understand the mechanics of their lifestyle, the financials of their lifestyle, as well as the behaviors that are driving the particular decisions that are being made in the lifestyle.
As a business owner, that looks very different for you. And we will do some significant paradigm shifts with you as you think about what that looks like. Often you think the wealth from your business right now should just be spent, and then you will live off whatever comes out of selling your business, and however long that lasts. What we do instead is say that lifestyle should be the same, other than you'll have some additions as you age that you'll want to look at for healthcare. You'll have some dips and changes that we have calculations that help you live the lifestyle you want until your exit date from life, not your exit date from business. So you don't have that I'm no longer in this business as the stop point of living a fantastic lifestyle. You live that now and in the future.
And there's some interesting commonality of people's lifestyle behaviors, whether you spend $50,000 a year or $150,000 a year. There's some really interesting parallels in those lifestyle models, I guess, or the way the lifestyle spending profile goes. And one of them, just to give you an example, is that once people hit 45, they tend not to change their lifestyle. Notwithstanding large purchases like maybe a cottage or maybe a boat. So large capital investments are still a thing that could happen. But in general, once people hit 45, how they're living is pretty much how they're going to live, almost irrespective of wealth.
Right. So we can spend time figuring that out with you. If you were to sit down by yourself and figure that out, it might be a bit of a challenge, but that's why we start there. Right? And this is in the design of your business phase, right? If you are designing your business such that it will fuel your lifestyle, not asking yourself questions about if your business can afford something, but how can your business create that?
Your wealth engine is operating in service of your lifestyle and legacy.
Which brings us to legacy.
Yes, which brings us to legacy.
If you want to introduce the legacy aspect of the design pillar.
Legacy is often thought of as a remnant, a residual. It's what's left over. So I've created a certain amount of wealth, and this is true whether you're an employee or a business owner. The economic value of your life is going to translate into a certain amount of income and assets, and it varies, from family to family. And your lifestyle while you're working, and then your lifestyle after you're not working, and for the sake of discussion, we'll call that retirement, is going to consume some proportion of both that income and the asset pool that you build up. And it's often the case because people don't want to think about their demise, right? It's an uncomfortable conversation to have. And the legacy is what's left after your estate is settled. And you would probably have something in your will that would say, well, after this and this and this and this, then this thing is going to happen with whatever is left. But you can actually design a legacy as intentionally as you can design a lifestyle, as intentionally as you build and operate your business, or become the leader of your business.
When you're able to think about money in this up-leveled fashion, it gives you more control. You stop being subject to money and what happens, just as you stop being subject to the market, right? Designing where you fit in the market, you can also become much more objective. It's a new set of thinking tools that allow you to intentionally, first of all, be able to see beyond this year or this quarter, to be able to know that you can make that predictable, lets you be much more objective about money and what you're creating and why.
And if you're operating a successful business, and we certainly hope that you are, and we certainly know that we can help you become more successful at your business, the potential legacies that you might think to create once you have a view to what kind of wealth is that you're building, that you're successfully building, it really opens the door to thinking quite significantly about the future. One of the questions we often pose to our clients when we're in the legacy discussion is, do you want your name on the wing of a hospital? And that's a legacy thing that is within the purview of most successful business people, that kind of legacy, that kind of community impact.
It's also important we have those conversations with you about when legacy kicks in. We'll show it to you graphically, why it doesn't kick in today if it doesn't. You need to know that your business is sustainable and that you're growing towards a future of having that impact in the community. Sometimes people think that they should start with a charity right from day one. They've never figured out their bottom line. They don't know their margins. They don't know their break even, and they're giving right away without being able to give it that thought, and it's just not sustainable. The impact, right, is going to be different.
And there's a little red wagon concept associated with that.
Yeah, that in order to deserve what you're receiving, you have to give.
Right.
And we take you out of that into, you already deserve it. You're putting the risk in. There's nothing to earn to become someone who is becoming an economic driver in the community. And then you can step into a more freedom space of, how do I want to give? How do I want to have an impact on my community? What do I care about? And it stops being that checkbox, and it becomes another place that is a dream goal that you're setting with us.
And again, because of the part of the team that I represent, I will tell you that legacy, once we've together figured out what the magnitude of that legacy might be, there are some extremely tax efficient ways to achieve the legacy, which has the value of enhancing the legacy, because there are actually more dollars available to support whatever it is that you want to have as your legacy.
Oh, that's a great point. It's that concept of investing money through your corporation instead of pulling it out, losing a ton of it to the tax man, and then giving it to charity. It's like you've given twice, once to the government and once to the charity, which means you're having half the impact.
Exactly.
And those are fun conversations to have too, so that you can have that bigger impact and work less to achieve more. And I think that's a great place that we sit in that legacy piece, is to show you how the legacy that you want to create in 10 or 20 years can be much bigger than you realized it could be if you start planning it now.
Yes, absolutely, it can be. It can be. It is a very common thing when we work through, especially the first version of the plan. We always do 2 versions of the plan. We do an interim version. We have a quite lengthy meeting usually with the clients to review the assumptions, make sure we've got everything right. Once they see it in front of them, it becomes real and they start to make different decisions, and we often tweak that interim version of the plan. And it is very, very common for clients to look at those numbers put down on paper for the first time and be absolutely flabbergasted about the wealth that they're creating.
Yeah, that long-term view with that level of tax and cash wisdom that we can inject into, Jim injects into the plan, that our financial team.
All of us here do.
He creates a pretty impressive, clear chart so you can actually see that. And we've had some really fun expressions.
We have. Yeah. It's one of the It's one of the most amazing. It's one of the most amazing parts of, I think, the job that I do on the planning side of this. One of the most enjoyable things always is to put a plan for the first time in front of a new client and have them have that "I'm worth what?" It's very, very rewarding.
I was having an onboarding client with a client discussion this week, and I said, "No, one of the things that I find the most exciting is this 3-hour presentation where Jim goes, 'This is who you are. This is what you're building.' And I know that may not sound sexy." And he said, "Oh no, that sounds sexy." When you look at all the time and money and effort you put into your business thus far, and you may not be at that level of profitability yet, and so you cannot realize what the next 10 years looks like in your business.
Yeah.
You've been putting in the sweat equity and wondering when does it pay off. To have that visual of this is how it pays off is very sexy.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Which brings us to leadership. In order to really build an asset, build a business that is separate from you, you need to move from that owner-operator where you are the person who does the thing so well and step out of it and stop doing what you do so well, but turn it into a process so that you can then move from owner-operator to owner-manager and then eventually into owner-leader. There is 80% of your success is that internal game of stopping acting like an employee in your company and being able to think in some of the ways that we will help you discover some wisdom around and some skills around so that you can step into that leadership role.
Yeah, you want to be aspiring to be the chairman of your company. That's the role ultimately you want to, we think, aspire to. It's the role that's going to allow you to create the most value out of your wealth engine. It's the position that's going to allow you to have the greatest impact, legacy-wise, on your community, on your employees, on your family.
And as you start stepping out of operations, out of some of the administrivia, you start putting in place the team internally that helps you create the result that you want. It's a process of being able to let go of the reins and build trust in yourself and build trust in others. It's a very powerful transformation that you get to go through as you see that you can engage and inspire people within your team to do the work that your company is doing. It starts being about what your company can achieve. It also means you stop trying to be more productive yourself and try to make a productive company instead.
And it doesn't mean you have to give up some of the things that you like to do and I'm going to say this, in a hobby sense. So we have a client who's a very successful property developer who happens to like renovating old homes. So he is the chairman of his company, and every now and again he'll buy an old house and renovate it with some of his construction crew. So that's, still gets to swing a hammer.
Absolutely. Right? You get to step into those $1,000 tasks where you have your greatest value, your greatest impact. And sometimes it feels a little greedy as you get used to working on the business as a leader, that you get to do these things that make a real sea change in the business. It's exciting. It's never as boring as wearing all the hats. You think that wearing all the hats, because there's so much stress involved, that's where the excitement is. But it's as you start taking those hats off and removing some of the stress that you discover where some of the greater rewards in your business are.
Right. One of my favorite leadership stories, Southwest Airlines, which has been, over a long period of time, one of the most successful airlines in the world. The chairman of Southwest Airlines makes it a point on either Thanksgiving or Christmas to go load baggage with his crews.
Nice.
Yeah. So leadership takes many forms.
Definitely. Seeing yourself as a leader right from day one, because you are the CEO of your company, can be hard, right? Taking yourself seriously because you don't have a bunch of experience yet. But knowing where you're growing to can make that a lot easier as well. When you see that projection of what you are building and recognize you're the one that currently is at the helm building that, can help you do those operations meetings, do the morning meetings with people, start running the governance piece that we're going to talk about in a moment, that developing that belief that you are the leader allows you to step into. All this is the why. I know Simon Sinek says start with why, and yes, just don't stop with why. The why is that chunked up, powerful, motivating part of the business. Often, in the first few years of business, the why is I need to make payroll. I need to just grow. If you're not growing, you're dying. And you can forget that these are actually the aspects of the why that motivate you from an authentic, heart-based, joy-filled place. And so we really pull you back there first. Let's recenter in your why. So at this level, when you can do this, the business stops owning you and it starts to become something that fuels your life. It becomes the business of your dreams and starts fulfilling those things that you had hoped that it would do and you may have forgotten over the last couple of years of stress. Mm-hmm. So that's pillar number 1. And it is where we always start because you're currently kind of flying the plane and you realize you don't have an airport you took off from or an airport to land on. In pillar number 2, we're actually talking about kind of building the plane, putting that foundation in place that supports the business that you're growing. I know it sounds kind of backwards, but we'll talk about that in the next video. And then after that one, we'll talk about pillar number 3, which is building the wealth, right? Remembering that that wealth that you're generating is how you have the impact, how you create the results that you want to. So are there any last thoughts you have on this pillar before we...
It's the piece you put in place to understand why you're going to want to do the other 2 pillars.
Yeah, it keeps you going.
Yeah.
I like that. So we're going to break here. We're not going to go do a costume change. Time is not going to elapse, but we're going to come back with the next video that you'll see in the series, which will be pillar number 2, foundation. Next week, if you're watching this as we go live, but otherwise just go through the YouTube channel and you'll find it right there in the playlist.
Till the next pillar.
See you then.